My name is Shaphan. I am a scribe of the court of Judah. I have served kings since I was a young man. I served Amen. And I remember well the rot that permeated the palace, a faint scent of foreign incense in hallways where it should not have been. The quiet compromises, the laws of our fathers spoken of as quaint stories, not as living commands. We were a kingdom adrift, and I, a loyal servant of the state, had learned to navigate the currents of decay with a weary heart. When Amen was murdered and his boy, Josiah, was placed on the throne, we in the court saw it as a political necessity, nothing more. He was 8 years old. For years, he was a child playing with his tutors, while the real power remained in the hands of the old, established families. I did my work, recorded the edicts, balanced the ledgers, and expected the slow decline to continue. The change began in the 18th year of his reign. It started not with a thunderclap, but with a ledger entry. The king, now a serious young man of 26, decreed that the temple of the Lord must be repaired. The house of God had become a crumbling monument to our neglect. I oversaw the collection of the silver, ensuring it was given directly to the hands of the craftsmen, carpenters, builders, masons. There was an integrity to the process that felt new. I was in my office, reviewing the accounts, when the high priest Hilkiah appeared at my door. His face was pale, his hands trembled slightly as he held out an ancient, dusty scroll. "Shaphan," he said, his voice a low hum of awe and fear. "I have found the book of the law in the temple of the Lord." I took it from him. It was a state matter, an artifact. My first thought was of its preservation. I unrolled the brittle parchment carefully, and then I began to read. I read of a covenant, of blessings we had never known, and of curses that were a perfect mirror of our history. It was not a story, it was our indictment. My hands were shaking when I finished. This was not a document for the archives. This was a living fire. I went to the king at once. Josiah sat in the throne room, attending to some minor dispute. I waited until he was finished, and then I said, "Hilkiah, the priest has given me a book," and I began to read it aloud to him. "I will never, as long as I live, forget what happened next." As I read the words of the curses, the plagues, the famines, the defeats we would suffer for our disobedience, the king's face did not grow hard with anger. His shoulders began to shake. He, the most powerful man in Judah, tore his royal robes from top to bottom. A raw, visceral cry of grief echoing in the hall. "Go," he wept, his voice choked. "Inquire of the Lord for me, and for the people, and for all Judah about what is written in this book that has been found. Great is the Lord's anger that burns against us." In that moment, he ceased to be my political master. He became my king. What followed was a cleansing. Josiah moved through Judah like a righteous storm. I was there in the council meetings. I drafted the edicts. We tore down the Asherah pole from the temple itself. We ground the altars of Baal to dust. We journeyed to Bethel and defiled the very place where the sin of Jeroboam had begun, burning the bones of long-dead pagan priests upon their own altar. It culminated in the Passover, not the small, formal affair we had always known, but a national celebration. Jerusalem overflowed. The joy was a palpable thing, a force that seemed to push back the shadows that had clung to us for so long. Standing beside my king, watching the families of Judah celebrate as one, I felt a hope so fierce, it was almost painful. The end came unexpectedly. Pharaoh Necho of Egypt was marching north. It was not our fight. I was in the council when we debated it. The Pharaoh himself sent a warning, a plea for Josiah not to interfere, even claiming God was on his side. But Josiah was filled with a righteous fire. He saw a pagan army marching near our lands and believed it was his duty to confront it. He would not listen. I was not at Megiddo. I received the news in Jerusalem. A runner, his face streaked with dust and tears, gasping out the story. The disguise, the battle, the stray arrow, the wail that rose from the city when his chariot returned, carrying not our triumphant king but his broken body, was the sound of a nation's soul breaking. I am an old man now. I have lived to see Josiah's sons undo his work. The idols are creeping back. The darkness he fought so hard to banish is seeping in at the edges once more. The might of Babylon looms on the horizon. Was it all for nothing? No. The kingdom may be doomed, but for a brief, glorious time. One king showed us what it meant to have a heart that was wholly turned toward God. He held the fire of the law in his hands and was not burned, but refined. I, Shaphan the Scribe, recorded the ledgers of our decline, but I also held the scroll that made a king weep, and I saw a light shine in the darkness. And that is a story I will carry into whatever comes next.